Alexandria, Virginia is consistently ranked as one of the top 5 small cities in the United States to live. And in this video, I'm gonna go over 21 different reasons why people move here and why it's such a great place to call home. So let's jump into it. Number 1 is location. So you are very close to Washington, D.C., right across the river in about a 10 or 15 minute drive, depending on traffic and that type of thing. But it's almost like a little oasis outside of the city. So while it is its own like urban town, it's not gonna be as busy. There's not as many people, not as much congestion. It's not the nation's capital. So it's great for people that wanna live in a city, but don't want the like chaoticness of living in a huge city. And while it can get busy with tourists and different people, it definitely has more of that small town feel. And that leads me to point number 2 is that if you move to Old Town Alexandria, people will want to visit you. It's a pretty big tourist destination, and it's a great place for like a day trip, a weekend trip. It's not a cookie cutter type of city. I mean, it's a historic waterfront town. So there's plenty of restaurants and different things to do right along the water. The next reason is the outdoor activities. So there are dozens of parks and trails right around Alexandria. If we want to get specific, there's actually 900 acres of parks, including 8 waterfront parks. And then you also have a lot of trails, including most famously the Mount Vernon Trail, which is definitely worth checking out. It's a 17-mile trail going from the Mount Vernon estate where George Washington used to live in Alexandria, all the way up to Roslyn, and it's great for biking, jogging, walking, and some people even use that trail to commute to work. And I had a friend that used to live in Old Town right on the water, and you know, the trail was right there, the Mount Vernon Trail. We would see bald eagles, different types of birds, wildlife, different things, you know, watch the ships come and go. So it's definitely worth exploring. The next reason to move to Alexandria is the dining and shopping options. So there's a lot of award-winning restaurants here. There's over 200 different restaurants in Alexandria, and there's over 100 different stores, mostly like boutique types of stores. And what's great is that there's a lot of fine dining options, but then there's a lot of casual restaurants as well. And then depending on, you know, which restaurant you go to, you know, you can have some incredible views of the water. You can also check out Gadsby's Tavern, which is where Thomas Jefferson and George Washington used to go for drinks. So you can actually still get food and drinks there, so definitely worth checking out. The next reason is the grocery stores. So you have a lot of different grocery store options. There's Trader Joe's, Harris Teeter, Safeway. So there's a lot of different options when it comes to grocery stores. So let's talk about the breweries and the beer. So I'm not even a huge beer drinker, but there is nothing better than a nice cold beer overlooking the water. There's several award-winning beers in this area. So Port City Brewing Company, it's right out, the actual brewery itself is outside of Old Town, but pretty close by if you actually want to check that out. But then obviously you can get that, you know, to order if you're at a local restaurant in Old Town. And then there's also Aslan Beer, which the actual brewery itself is outside of Old Town, which is cool to check out, but then you can order that beer if you're at any of these Old Town restaurants. And then if you're into cider, Lost Boys Cider is definitely worth trying and checking out as well. Another reason to move here is that in 2019, Forbes named Old Town Alexandria the ice cream cone capital of the United States. So if you're into ice cream, it's a great place to just walk around. There's a lot of different types of ice cream places here. They have artisanal ice cream, which I'm not even sure exactly what artisanal ice cream is. It's probably the opposite of Breyer's ice cream. There's many different places to walk around and check out. One of the biggest reasons why people move to Old Town is the waterfront lifestyle. So you can walk around the boardwalk. They have river cruises. There's a water taxi. They have a marina for sailing, kayaking, paddleboarding. Myself personally, I just like walking around the water, having a drink by the water, eating some food by the water. And what's also nice is that you can walk around the waterfront like day or night. There's always something going on, and it's incredibly scenic. And real quick, 10 seconds before we get to the next reason, if you're looking at buying or selling in Old Town Alexandria or have questions about moving there, shoot me a text or give me a call at this number below. I would love to assist. We could even get a drink on the water, chat some real estate, and enjoy the scenery. Okay, the next reason is the historic charm of Old Town Alexandria. Old Town has so much history, you know, dating back to George Washington and even before then. I remember showing different properties where, you know, one property may have been where George Washington spent his last 4th of July. Another property I was showing was George Washington's brother's carriage house. And, you know, every house in Old Town probably has some background and some pretty interesting history there. You also have the Mount Vernon Estate, which is about 10 miles outside of Old Town, and that's where George Washington, one of the houses that he lived at, one of his main houses. He also had a few properties in Old Town itself. And there's always different tours going on in Old Town Alexandria, like walking tours led by someone with like a lantern and dressed up in old colonial garb. But they have these different ghost tours and historical tours all around Old Town Alexandria, so definitely worth checking out. There's also a lot of naval history to check out. So Old Town used to be a big port city. So there's a boat, I believe it's called the Tall Ship Providence, that you can actually get a tour of, and it kind of shows you what the boat was like, during the 18th century. Let's talk about the real estate in Old Town. So it's going to be more affordable than Georgetown, which is obviously DC. So if you're into historic houses, which sometimes can be a little bit smaller, wonkier, the stairways might be a little bit more narrower. But if you're into historic properties, a lot of these homes have been beautifully restored. And there's also condos as well, sometimes with incredible views of the water. And then if you go a little bit outside of Old Town, you have neighborhoods like Del Rey, Rosemont, even Bellhaven, where you'll get like more of an eclectic mix of properties. You can get, a little bit more space, a single family house. And one thing people love about the Alexandria area is that it's just so scenic. So sometimes when I go 45 minutes outside of DC, the subdivisions, every single house looks exactly the same. There's like the exact same car, it's just very cookie cutter. Old Town and the surrounding areas are not cookie cutter at all. They're incredibly scenic, and there's just a variety of housing options to choose from. Let's talk about the school systems now. So actually the main high school that is for Alexandria was T.C. Williams from Remember the Titans, the famous movie, one of the best movies of all time. Now it's called Alexandria City Public High School. So you have that high school, but then you have tons of private schools as well. There's a lot of different education options when it comes to Alexandria. Nightlife. So this is another big draw to the Old Town area is the nightlife. There's a lot of like local bars that have live music, pubs, and just different kind of cool places to check out that aren't the same that you'll see in like DC or Arlington, for example. And then if you're looking to go to like concerts or shows and different things like that, you have MGM National Harbor directly across the water, maybe a 10 or 15 minute drive. You can also take the water taxi, and they have some big names there. I saw Bill Burr, the comedian there, but they have tons of big musicians, comedians, different people like that. And then you also have access to the wharf, which is in Southwest DC, so you can take a water taxi there, or you can drive over there. But they also have some very big name concerts going on. The low crime rate in Alexandria is also another big draw to the neighborhood. When you compare it to other cities, it has a much lower crime rate. And always check those statistics. I'm not an expert on that, but according to different lists and different rankings, the crime rate is very low. It's going to be about half of the national average. And with Old Town Alexandria, there's always people walking around at night, walking around during the day. It has a very like neighborhood type of feel to it. And that brings me to the community part of Alexandria. So along King Street and along the main parts of Old Town Alexandria, there's always different events and like parades and festivals, and just there is always something going on. There is never a dull moment in Old Town. And what's also great is there's a farmer's market there. But it's not just any farmer's market in Old Town. It is the oldest farmer's market in the United States. And it's actually the same farmer's market where George Washington would actually sell his produce. So it's definitely worth checking out. The climate here is another big draw to Old Town. So you get 4 seasons in Old Town. And, in the fall when the leaves are turning, you see so many people taking Instagram photos or different photos with, there's a cobblestone street with these historic properties and the leaves are coming down and the waterfront is right there. So it's really worth it, whether you're taking photos or not, just to walk around some of these streets in the different seasons. It's really nice and scenic. The job market is another big draw to Alexandria, and I probably should have made this like reason number 1 or reason number 2. It's probably pretty important for most people. So there's a robust job market in Alexandria. You have Amazon HQ2, the Amazon second headquarters, which is just up the street in Arlington. And then in Alexandria itself, you have a lot of Department of Defense offices. There's the Patent and Trademark office, and you're just very close to many large employers. Obviously, DC is right there. So there are many different opportunities when it comes to employment. Another reason to move here is that it's one of the most dog-friendly places in the United States. So if you're just walking around the streets of Old Town, you'll probably run into tons of people walking their dogs. You'll probably meet a lot of people that way as well. And then there's a lot of small businesses that cater to dog owners. So, dog boarding, dog washing, probably a bunch of other ones as well. I don't have a dog right now, but there's a lot of options. In terms of sporting events, Old Town Alexandria is a city, but it's not a major city. So we all follow, the Washington, D.C. sports teams. But what's great is that you can take a water taxi to the Nationals baseball games. It's probably just 15-20 minute ride across the river. And then we also have the Washington Capitals, which is in downtown DC, and you would take a short Uber ride. There's also a metro station kind of on the edge of the community that you can take the metro there. And then we have DC United games, which you could also just take the water taxi to the Nats area and then walk a little bit. It's very close by to the Nats Park. And then we also have our notorious football team, Commanders, Redskins, whatever you want to call us. And that stadium is much further away in Maryland. so not too many people actually go to those games anymore. If you want to watch the football game, I would recommend, going to a bar in Old Town along the water and, spending your 50 or $100 right there. Another reason people love Alexandria is all of the transportation options. So it's a very walkable, small town if you're in Old Town. And then if you're driving, it's an easy commute. Sometimes it does get busy during rush hour and everything like that, like any city would, but you're still very close by to Arlington, to DC, and also getting out of the city. And then we have the water taxi that I mentioned. There's bus routes. There are a couple metro stations, not in the middle of the community, kind of like on the edges of the community, but you do have metro access. A lot of people also bike. And there's also a King Street trolley, which goes up and down King Street, which is kind of a cool thing to check out. Then in terms of airports, you have DCA Airport, which is basically right in the community, maybe, 5 minutes away, depending on where you live. And then you also have Dulles Airport, which is about 20 miles away, and then BWI Airport, which I think is about 30 miles away. So it's nice having so many different airports so close by. You can get some very good deals on flights. If you're just looking at one airport, you might not get the best deal, but if you have the option of 3 different airports, I always recommend DCA, because when you go to BWI, you might save $100, but then, when you're coming back from your flight, you got to drive like an hour, back to Alexandria. And one thing that's great though is Dulles Airport, so that's the more of the international airport. That's about 20 miles away. You're close enough to Dulles where you can mistakenly go to DCA and still have enough time to catch your flight to Dulles. And you can ask me how I know. That's another story for another day. And I blame that trip completely on my brother. He was the one who planned it, but we were still able to make our flight. The next reason to move to Alexandria is the art scene. So there's a very big art scene here. We actually have the Torpedo Factory, which used to be a torpedo factory, I think in World War II, and has now been converted into an art exhibit. So I think there's over 100 different artists that kind of showcase their art there, and then there's different events. You can check their schedule, but there's always something going on there. And it's also not just the Torpedo Factory. There's different art galleries kind of throughout Old Town. So it's a very art-friendly place. I was never very good at art, but I can appreciate looking at nice scenic art. So shoot me a text or give me a call at the number below if you're looking at buying or selling in Alexandria or have any questions about living in this area or the general DMV area. I would love to assist. See you on the next one. Bye.